Hello, everyone. Good morning, your afternoon, your evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining this session. I want to welcome us to the Security Compliance Corner, our March edition. So this actually promises to be a great edition because we have a wonderful topic that we'll be discussing today. Before we go into it, I would like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Emmanuel Itoje. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer as well as a technical architect. I focus on Microsoft 365, Azure, Copilot, AI, and security. So I'm actually glad to be hosting this particular session. And today we have an amazing speakers that is joining us today, Oladele Soares, and the topic we'll be looking into today is data security posture management or with Microsoft Purview. So this is actually a very important topic that organization needs. How can we ensure that our data is actually secure? How do we measure our current security posture management using Microsoft Purview, which is a Microsoft compliance tool? So it's actually a pleasure to have us here. So please, you can help us use the chat. You can just introduce yourself in the chat, tell us your name, where you're joining us from, what are your expectations for this particular session, your name, where you're joining us from, and your expectations for this session. Thank you so much for joining. Oladele, it's good to have you here today. I'll be handing over the mic to you. You're taking on mute.
Thanks so much, Itoje. I think it's one of thanks for having me. Data security is probably one of my most preferred topic when it comes to Microsoft security stack. No, not technically when it comes to security, to be fair, because it's something that a lot of businesses are now making as a core strategy when it comes to security. So things are now going behind regular firewalls, the regular VPNs, the regular um, um, security that we used to have. It's now going to the issue with data and all of this nice stuff. And obviously, this is going to continue for as long as the world continues to exist. So there's a power in data, and it sits around quite a lot of strategy. So, I mean, the conversation today for me would be I would like it to be much more interactive. Try to get to understand what the audience, not we're not going to go into technical details, but rather it's more strategic conversation, explaining my use case, my experience over time with different data security project and even um solutions I've worked with. So I think as Itoje said, it would be nice to understand our audience because it's very important to understand the distribution of people that we're going to be speaking to today. So just to understand different your background, your expectation, and then of course be participating. So I'll leave about 2 minutes for us to just put in a chat your name, expectations, and of course, what you currently do. But before then, I should introduce myself properly. So my name is Oladele Soares. Um, sorry, let me just take it back. So, I'm a senior cloud security manager. Over 7 years of experience within the security space. I've managed to acquire some of these certifications as part of my roles. Um, at the moment, I'm sitting for my CCSP, which is the Certified Cloud Security Professional, as part of um, what's it called? As part of the CSSP examination. Also trying to go into full API security and some of this nice stuff. Um, I've had the opportunity to actually consult or work for some of this organization. I started off things at Reliance Info Systems, moved down to Tech Expert, then relocated to the UK, and then starting with NatWest, Barclays. I had an opportunity to work with Microsoft as well, AXA Insurance, and now Wilson James. Yeah, that's it about me really. So I'm just going to give about 2 minutes of for us to just put in the chat your name, your role, and what your expectations are, so that it kind of helps us understand the flow, if that's fine. So the 2 minutes we would kick off. We would get started by what time is it now? So by 1:13 we would kick off that. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, guys. Can you guys hear me though?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I'd like to understand our audience. That'll be very, very nice of us to, just does it, even if it could be just to understand what people are. But it's fine if you don't want to. That's all right. We could still carry on. Okay. Doesn't look like anyone wants to speak to me today. That's all right. Anyways, yeah. So the conversation today is data security posture management with Purview. And the agenda for today is for us to understand what data security is. Sorry, data security posture management, DSPM. It's one of those buzzwords that just comes up every now and then. There was time we're talking about zero trust. There's sometimes we're talking about secure by design. There's the time we're talking about security as the identity as the new perimeter. So there's a lot of conception that comes up every year with security, at least in my experience of the last 7 years. There's always something that we would talk about. Now, so for the agenda today, we will be looking at just wanna take off this camera. So for the agenda today, we're going to be looking at what data security is, data security posture management is. We're going to be looking at why is it really important. We will then delve into the overview of Microsoft Purview and the key capabilities of Microsoft Purview when it comes to data security posture management. And then we try to understand the key capability of DSPM and how to implement some of those things in a robust environment. We would also talk about things around the risk scenarios, the implementation approach, the challenges that you would face when you begin to implement DSPM, and of course, the takeaway from the conversation. And of course, lastly, we'll be talking about some Q&A, so question and answer. The call would be for 2 hours. So I think we had about 30 minutes into 2 hours. So of course we would have about 1 hour 47 minutes of chat. So this is the way I like to run the show. I like us to have like a conversation. Feel free to ask question. Feel free to unmute yourself to interrupt when you need to, but just ensure that you raise your hands when you want to do that. I believe that's clear. Now, the keywords, the key buzzword I'll be looking out today, DSPM. What is DSPM? I like to see DSPM as a strategy, as a security strategy that puts data at the forefront of your your environment. So usually in the past, if you look at the reason why IT exists technically, you would understand that data is the reason why all of these things that we are doing in IT exist. A good example. You want to travel abroad, for example. For some reason or the other, you have to then apply for a visa, you have to apply for your passport, you have to do this, you have to do that, and all those nice stuff. And as part of this, you are providing data to the organization that will process that data and also then, have that data sitting somewhere and use that data to then provide you the service you're looking for. So that same data is then being kind of shipped to the airlines, which they would then be responsible to use that information to, traffic you from wherever you're going to where you're going to. Now, when you get to your destination, it's also that same data that will still be required to identify you, to also understand what your plans are, where you're going, and all those nice stuff. So if you look at it, every functioning business revolves around data, information. And over the years, being in security, we've built robust security approaches to different things. So we are looking at securing our firewalls, our endpoint, the servers, our application, and all those nice stuff. But what really moves from point A to point B is the data. And that is why data security is not like the gold of security today and also the goal of every organization. Now, with DSPM, it has always been existing for a long period of time, technically, but it was until recently that people now start thinking of, well, let's have, a strategy around it. Because if you're building all of your security infrastructures and all this nice stuff, you need to understand the primary goal to why you're doing all of those things. So as part of DSPM strategy, there is a discovery element of data. So in most organizations, you realize that you have a repository of data sitting in different um, infrastructure, whether it is structured or unstructured data, things that allows you to work. I'm sure most people might probably think, what, because I because I'm for example, because I work in the bank, for example, I work as a cashier, whatever. I pay money to people's account, I withdraw and all those nice stuff. But the driving factor for making those payments is the data. So it's important to first establish what DSPM is because I've been in conversation by people betraying DSPM, maybe not wrongly, but they did not understand the concept of it and why it was actually it was actually it came up in like this as a strategy. So first things first, the walkthrough for DSPM will go to things like so for example, we go to things like data discovery. Now, for a successful DSPM program, data security posture management program, you will want to first understand where your data sits. There is always a saying that you cannot protect what you don't know. So if you're building a security infrastructure, you're talking about security, enterprise security architecture. If you don't know what is in a particular thing, you can't secure it, and that leads to some level of destruction as soon. Because at the end of the day, you might think your attack surface is your endpoint, or you might think your attack surface is on a network, but in reality, when the threat actors get into your environment, they're after one thing, which is your data. Sometimes it might be that there might be some elements of denial of service, ransomware attack and stuff. But even if you have a ransomware attack, your data is still that one thing that gets impacted because you can't work without having your data. So that discovery element of knowing what you have then goes down to the conversation of how do you classify those data. Now, I'm sure some of us have been to places like ShopRite or ShopRite is a good example. When you get to ShopRite, you realize that for every till that's got product, there's a label on top of it that allows you to know exactly where you're going. So if without that, I'm sure everybody will come to a big mall, shopping mall, and just be running elter skelter because they don't know where things are. So if you liken that explanation to data classification, it kind of helps you to then identify what we call your crown jewels, things that are really important to you so that you can then prioritize those crown jewels by applying things like your labeling. You know, these days people just label is as important as is as important as ensuring that you kind of help your users to understand the severity of some set of information and at the same time kind of understand the importance of some information and the ones that are less important. So classification is very important. So we're talking about things like applying sensitivity labels, which you're going to get to in a short period of time, but the bone of contention is that if you don't discover and find those data where they sit, you can't classify them appropriately. So Microsoft Purview in this conversation will do quite a lot of this for us. We're going to see it. I don't want to go too technical. I want it to be very, very strategic. Um, I don't know, TF, you've got mic off. Do you want to say something? Thank you very much. Are we following? Have I lost anyone?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, thank you. So you want to look out for that. So that classification is very important. So when you classify your data, is think of if you're looking using that idea of the till at the shopping mall, you realize that every product section has their different set of till. And when you get to the till that has something that are highly corrosive, for example, like bleach or whatever, you have like a special kind of tag that they give to it. It's not there for fancy. It's there to ensure to tell you that look at this till, it's a very sensitive area. Take conscious effort, you know. So the same thing in data as well. By the time you classify your data, you can identify those crown jewels. You understand those things that are very, very important to the business that should, in case it gets to the wrong hands, it can cause adverse effect on the business. And that's where the conversion of prioritization comes in. So you prioritize it by applying your set of labels. I've seen businesses go with some labeling taxonomy. So taxonomy is like think about it as the way you kind of label different things based on their sensitivity. So people will go with things like internal, confidential, public, internal, confidential, and restricted. Just by using those terms, your users are kind of understanding the the what's the word? Kind of understanding the I would say the importance of that data so that they can then handle it carefully. Now with Microsoft Purview, we have a set of ability designed to give you that bird eye view of where your data sits and lives. And with that, you can know who is accessing it, and you can as well protect it across your entire data estate. Now, from what I've explained, DSPM is a strategy. Microsoft Purview offers that comprehensive bird eye view to kind of first identify where your sensitive data sits. Secondly, why secondly, how to then classify and then ensure that you're being protected. Any question on what DSPM is? So let's go a question. Sure.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just to go back to your conversation and what you've actually said. You said DSPM is a strategy. At what point will you initiate this strategy in an organization or to implement DSPM? Or what are you trying to get out of DSPM when you're trying to implement DSPM? I think we kind of need a bit of understanding in that.
Okay.
I could actually, I don't know if you understand my question, because
I
basically,
do get a question. Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
because basically, if you want to deploy DLP for data security, you're trying to prevent data loss of. So what actually are we trying to use DSPM for?
Good question. Very good question. Now, you've spoken about one of the key areas we're going to touch, which is data loss prevention. So previously, data security was probably operating in different dimensions. So you have businesses, deploying DLPs and all those nice stuff. Now, most businesses don't know the amount of data that they've got. Okay. And that automatically impact their posture on their data security. Okay. So the point where it becomes very paramount to the business is to understand first what they have. Secondly, how to find what they have. Thirdly, finding it and classifying it. And lastly, ensuring that there are remediation for overexposure of those data. Because if you don't even know what you have, how do you want to know if it's overexposed? And it's a fundamental problem for business owners. It's not just for it's not an IT problem, you know. So it is for businesses to comply with set of requirements that governs their industry. Because you cannot tell me you are holding people's personal data and you don't understand where those data sits. And that is why this strategy is important. I don't know if that answers the question. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. I think I might come in again to ask another question,
Okay.
following up to what you've just said now. So let's say like my organization, we don't have labeling, we don't have sensitivity, anything. We're not protecting anything.
Okay.
Are you saying we should implement this DSPM first before we start thinking about what we need to start labeling and to start before we start thinking about sensitivity of our data? Does this come first before DLP in a way?
So that these are not misconceptions that I think I figured out in my last experience. So DSPM technically for me, and I start to be corrected, is a strategy that falls under the cover of data security. So basically, if you follow through whatever product you decide, whether it is Purview, Veronix, what's the other product called? There's an approach to it. And first and foremost, if you look at what I've described in the first part, the discovery part is where you then use things like your content explorer to find what you're sitting in there. The data classification part is where you then implement your labeling. Okay. The prioritization part is where you then say, okay, these are the most important set of data. Let's classify them properly. And the remediation part is the DOP you're talking about. So at the end of the day, DSPM is not just a portal for configuration. It kind of channels you towards different elements of data security. So we look at things like sensitivity labels, DLP, endpoint DLP, things like shadow AI, shadow agent AI. Sorry, shadow. What's that thing called again? Shadow. What's that thing called? It has be shadow
Shadow
apps,
IT.
shadow
Shadow IT.
IT. So different. So if you think about it, DSPM it gives you that. I would say it gives you that initial overview of what your exposures are when it comes to your data security. And if you got the name data security posture management, this is your data. You are exposed because you don't have labeling, you don't have DLP, you don't have Defender for Cloud to be looking at the cloud apps to be looking at the SaaS application. You don't have DLP for AI agents. You don't have classifications. Your org sharing is over permissive. So those things would not make sense to you until you kind of have like a bed view of everything, and then you can then decide how do you want to tackle the problem. Somebody has done something in the chat and probably just buttressed more points. So he said DSPM is a modern data-centric security discipline focused on open organization to identify, detect, protect sensitive data wherever it resides. So if you look at this, those point product that you just mentioned still falls under DSPM. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. But I think, yeah, it does make sense. I think it's just for us in this community right now to just get an understanding of the DSPM, that DSPM basically should actually really come first before we start looking at
Yeah, it's
protecting
a
any.
strategy. I personally would say if I was to wind back in previous job I was done, I would put DSPM first because it makes life a lot easier.
Because we always do others first before we now come to DSPM. That's where the confusion lies. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a new term. Just probably we started talking about DSPM like 2, 3 years ago. DLP has been going on for a while. Labeling has been going on for a while. Metadata labeling is been going on for a while. So I think, like I said, every now and then there's always something new that comes out, and people talk about stuff. So somebody else said something in the chat. He said, Lovin, I said, who needs DSPM? What level should the organization? What level should um what level should organization firm get to need it? To be honest with you, it depends on the risk appetite. Sorry, not I reframe that. It depends on the volume of data your organization currently holds. It's a responsibility of any data owner, irrespective of the size or how big the organization is. So if you are holding loads of sensitive data, it is a responsibility to ensure that you protect those information that sits within your repository. So the question you need to ask yourself is that if anything happens to your data, how can you slow down your business? So these are kind of answers that you give to yourself. I don't know if that answers your question, Lovina. Let's move forward. Now, why does DSPM matter? We've spoken much about this. So in the past, security has focused on perimeter, and now in the world of remote, multi-cloud, we are talking about data. So basically, you're working remotely, you're accessing something in SharePoint, you're working remotely, you're accessing something in your data storage, you're working remotely, you are doing something that people can't see within a content environment. So the attack surface is really, really open. Now, what the problem that we are now seeing and why it matters is that we are looking at data mapping. So data mapping is eliminating shadow data. Like I said before, data you didn't know you had, and you can't protect what you don't know. So you need that exposure to tell you, guy, you've got loose sensitive data in here that needs some level of protection. The other thing is the access analysis. You realize that so many links has been shared for collaboration. When Microsoft introduced things around collaboration with M365 model workspace, everybody was sharing things left, right, and center. I need to collaborate on this, they share. I need to collaborate on that, they share. And as such, we have so much stilled link being shared with people external to the business, which automatically increases the attack surface because at the end of the day, if your third-party business partner gets compromised, what that means is that that third-party business partner compromise automatically have access to your set of sensitive data. So DSPM also covers that element of oversharing. And this is where you are talking about things like removing all white links, looking at sensitive data based on their sensitive information types, and of course, looking at where those data sits within the SaaS application, like your OneDrive, sorry, your Google Drive, Dropbox, all those kind of things. And lastly, sensitivity labeling. It ensures that the important data are labeled correctly and they are protected with whatever protection measures you're looking at, maybe things like encryption or whatever the case is. So that is why DSPM matters. Now, let's look into the Microsoft Purview, Microsoft data security posture management, and I kind of tie this down to what we've been discussing since morning. Now, if you look at what I've got on the screen here, you can see that the DSPM in Purview sits around specific different chain of so if you look to the right, we have the analytics side. So analytics is basically, let's analyze what these users are doing. What is their day-to-day activity? Where do they go to? What do they download? What do they upload? What do they share? What do they receive? Using all of those information, we gather the analytics. So we realized that, we can as an example in Lovina. has been downloading so much personal data from the SharePoint site for HR, because Lavina is the HR for the organization. Because Lavina loves her work so much, realized that whenever she tries to share, she would just probably just share the document with anyone with the link. And of course, we've got Taufik, who is the senior security or a senior threats analyst or whatever. And I seen that, oh, Lavina, you're sharing a lot of especially to the HR SharePoint site, you're sharing a lot of sensitive information to partners that obviously we do not really do business with, but just because you want to get things out, so just share one with the link. And as such, Farouk has built some set of DLP policies to look out for people's personal information shared, PI, so personal identifiable information that is shared via channels like email, which is exchange, or shared through SharePoint or OneDrive, or shared through uploaded to third-party cloud application. So Farouk is a senior guy. He knows the Microsoft stuff so well. So with the DLP policy that he's put in, he's seen that Lavina's has been triggering on the alert dashboard for a lot of time for the fact that she just keeps sharing things. And of course, we've got sorry, I'm using your names to explain what we've got on the table here. And then we've got like Debo, um who's the insider risk threat analyst, whatever he is. He has gotten the memo that Lovina will be resigning in the next couple of days. And then Lovina has seen to download usually a unusual large amount of data that she doesn't really download as such. And one of the things that Debo has seen is that it contains like starter pack for new starter. It contains the business processes and procedures. It contains some of this key information, which means that as a matter of fact, Lavina was going to a competitor. So what that means is that Lavina is going to take the business crown jewels and take to the competitor, and then try to then use that same methodology. I mean, in Lavina's defense, she feels like she built the strategy, she built the information so she can take it. But she doesn't understand that it's an intellectual business property, you can take it. And as such, we got involved, and of course, we said, no, well, let's create a data security posture management. So what we are doing with that is that first and foremost, we want to first identify all our sensitive information. Okay. So with that, all our sensitive information sits within this repository. There's like SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, on-premises file servers, cloud services, and stuff like that. And with that identification, we can also say, how do we tend to find these documents? Because some documents don't have what we call key sensitive information types. Okay, so we are thinking of other mechanism for that we could use. So we thought about, you know what, we've got something called Trinity Classifier, which is an AI agent that can scan a SharePoint site based on the pattern of documents. So for example, in the HR department, you probably have a structure of how you put your document together. And that AI agent is able to scan the entire site and then give you a representation of what you have in your organization based on that information. We also thought about that because it's a business that operates on PI data, we've actually done some classification rules that looks for people's PI data, for example, full name, national insurance number, driver's license, and all of this nice stuff. And then we go down to things about let me use the pointer. So we go to things around oh, let me get this out. Don't need that one, another pointer. Eraser, sorry, I don't need this one. Let's clear. Are you guys following me though? Am I too fast or am I? If I'm not making sense, just let me know, you know. Are you following? Yeah. Now, so basically, so we've spoken about the tradable classifier. Now, as part of the strategy, we said, you know what, let's then create our sensitivity labels, because at least if you find, and I'm sorry, Lovina, I think I'm just using the name based on the fact that you are the closest person I could say. Now, if we find out that, or maybe I should probably use someone else. Hope you're not offended though. Okay. So basically, if you find out that Lovina has been sending something, you need to be able to at least articulate exactly what she's been sending. So the document category and stuff like that. So we implement what we call sensitivity labels. Now, the sensitivity labels would use information from your sensitive information types or terminal classifiers to apply the labels. Sometimes we might end up not having SITs, but rather the document owner understands the sensitivity of that information. So we also then give the document owner an ability to apply the labels to the documents. And as such, we're able to run what we call content analysis. We can do a scan on the environment and say, okay, look, based on this information that we've got here, search everything and tell us the amount of PI data we have, the amount of HR documents we have, the amount of contracts, the amount of this, the amount of that. And as such, let's say the risk indicator, who has been sharing stuff, what have they been doing, stuff like that. And down, we talk about what we call adaptive protection. So in case we see something that is unusual, what are the policies we put in place? Now, if you look at what we've got on the side, we've got things around trends and analytic report to track and understand the activity. So on the discovery part, like I said, we use sensitive asset labeling to either automatically or manually label documents. And as such, at least one DOP policy to trigger based on that label. Because if Lovina then says, you know what, IT is not looking at me anyways, I can forward this welcome pack or business case to my personal email. And then Lovina gets triggered by the DOP policy that Mr. Debo said. And as such, Lovina is called for disciplinary action to say, hey, we saw that you're doing this. We've monitored your analytics for the past 7 days. You don't do this often, but we realize that you just resigned from the HR information and now we see that you try to exfiltrate data. And as such, we throw the book to you. We say, you know what, Lavina, you have to go to court and, and stuff like that. Or maybe we just automatically close down Lavina's account and then put that into like a monitoring system, or maybe kind of make her very, very monitored. Make her monitored, yeah. Now, the recommendation that you probably see from some of these things is that you can transform the raw data into actionable security measures. So what that means is that you can see how your users are using your data with DSPM, and that allows you to then implement different sets of security controls. And that goes back to what Debo said at the beginning about at what point do you implement DLP. This is where you use the insight from DSPM to then decide what strategy you're going to be taking, what kind of DLP policy you would need, what kind of labeling policies you need, how do you deploy the labels, how do you deploy DLP policies, what channel of communication are you going to deploy those things to? Okay. I don't know if this has really clarified your ask, Debo.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, we've got someone's hand up. Whose hand is that? Okay. Anyways, so we can go on and on and on and on. But if you look at the bottom, this is a very big, very important information. So you opt into analytics to process your users' analytics. Of course, you evaluate the insight and act on them. Then now that we've got co-pilots coming in, everybody's doing AI, happy about it. People just pumped into AI and say, give me information about this. But don't forget that there's some users that want to be very nosy. I want to find out how much the CEO earns. And then can you tell me how much Emmanuel earns? And then this, because of the fact that we've not put filters within Copilot and the shopping environment or whatever, it searches through the entire estate and then gives, oh, Emmanuel hands over £1 million every year. And then it kind of creates a conflict in the business because Emmanuel has been paying very, very little to the staffs. And then there's a riot, you know. So as such, this is how you can think about strategy of how DSPM would kind of resolve common business problems, security problems, oversharing of information, crown jewels protection, data security, and even reshape the way you think about security in your organization. So if you look at it, it's not really just an IT kind of conversation. And that's why I said at the beginning, before we go into configuration and seeing stuff, you are better off understanding things from the high level. And then by the time you start going into your nice, fancy Purview environment, you kind of understand why you are building stuffs, what the policy are going to be doing, why should you build it this way rather than that way. And then and of course, because you have an exposure to what you have internally as part of the data, you can then have like a posture track to say how far we are doing from where we started to where we are. Yeah, Tofik is got a question. He said, how does DSPM helps reduce insider risk, insider threat? I think I just explained that topic. I don't know if that answers the question though. Tofik, if you're there, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, let's continue. I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah, we move forward. So let's see what we have got here. Now, so all of the technical jargons I've been saying since morning, this is a probably like an overview of how Purview will step into do different things when you follow through the DSPM strategy. So a good example, on here you have your Exchange, Team, SharePoint, Power BI, you know, everybody sits within M365 workloads. On this other side, you have your endpoint. So endpoint could be macOS, Android, Windows. Everybody have some some elements of data they're working with. Now, within that set of data, you have your classification labels, so confidential, general, public. And of course, data you don't need, you want to clear them as well. You want to delete or retain them based on the retention policy. And if you look at it down to this place, you realize that at the end of the day, the driving factor for all of this is the way data is moving from one point to another. And if you don't tighten your security up with implementing appropriate data security measures like bringing in your the things like your sensitive levels, your insider risk policy, insider threats, insider risk IRM, insider risk management policy, and kind of tighten that up to your maybe your endpoint security strategy or even your identity and access management strategy, you realize that you are leaving a hole for a rodent coming. So data is the forefront of everything. So my honest experience and my honest advice is if you are at the edge of implementing DSPM, it's very important for you um to put data security at the forefront of everything. I know it. So the idea is that everybody that is logging in every day to do their job, they're accessing something. It's something that they're accessing. What's that thing? Is data. So ensure that ensure that you have the right set of security controls in place. On the other side as well, all of the cloud application that we consume now, nobody really builds application on premises and say, now this is the only application you can access, unless it's a very, very controlled environment. So as such, you have application that you don't even manage. How do you manage those data in there? So we have different set of Purview product that kind of looks after that. So we have things like sensitivity labels, DLP, MIM, Defender for Cloud, DSPM for AI, and all of this nice stuff. At the end of the day, what we are saying with the strategy is that rather than having to think of where do I start, use DSPM for Purview to understand where to start, because that will give you like an exposure to what it is in your environment. Any question, guys? Any question? I feel like I've been speaking too much, and I just want to ensure that my audience are following. Any question, guys? Don't be shy. It's a session for us to discuss, not for us to, and I expect that. Any question? Okay. Now, on the next slide, the Microsoft Purview overview. Now, what do you expect to get from the Purview overview? We have the unified data governance security platform. With Purview, we can do data discovery, data classification, incident risk, and then, of course, the compliance. The compliance part is what is really important to the business owners. If you tell your CEO, we had a data breach and CEO is on our case. I don't know about Nigeria, but it's a major headache for businesses. So I'll give you an instance. I'm not going to mention the company's name, but there was a time we had a ransomware attack. And when there was a time there was a ransomware attack, and when it happened on the weekend, like most no security threat happens. And then when people came in on Monday, they couldn't do their job, and this is a critical business that kind of operates it's more like, think about it as something that works like 24/7, that can't afford to go down, and it went down over the weekend. Apart from the ICO coming to meet you to say the amount of personal data that has been breached, there's also an operational business denial, because you cannot access the data to carry out the business for the day. And as such, people's life, businesses have been impacted. So if you tell your CEO that, look, there's a major risk in this area and we can see the compliance requirements not matching up, one of the first things I'll ask you is that, how much does it cost? Because business owners understand the problem that they would face if data gets breached and for some reason the ICO comes in or there's a denial of service. So it's important to see from there. Now, let's understand the architecture of DSPM, because we've been seeing a lot of this. So, have you got a question? Have you got a question? Okay. Now, previously, people would want to implement data security and they start thinking of, let's start with labeling, let's start with DLP, let's start with this, let's start with that. But you would only start with something if you have an idea of how people interact with data. So as such, you will want to start with even obtaining for analytics. Let analytics do the job for you. And of course, you want to evaluate based on the report you get for the analytics. So you can either investigate with Security Copilot if you want, if you're in a Microsoft environment. But if you're in a Microsoft environment, number three might not be important to you. But the one that's important is creating policies with recommendation. Now, and lastly, you can then track the posture with analytics trend and reports. I'm going to share I'll just probably go into Purview portal quickly. Let's go into Purview portal quickly. And yeah. And then let's look at what the dashboard looks like. Like I said, I don't want to do anything technical because I don't believe getting into the technical conversation would would be of any help in this. Rather, it's more understanding the strategy around it. I usually don't have a quiet class, but for some reason, everyone is quiet. I don't know why. I feel like people don't like to listen to me, but it's all right. I like to listen to you. Now, this is what the Microsoft Purview portal looks like. The DSPM is still in preview, but I'm sure some of us are familiar today to Purview, and if you're not, this is what it looks like. In the solution tab, you can see a whole lot of things. Like this is a gigantic product. But one thing that comes to mind is that if I go into DSPM, you would see that if you read, it says DSPM, the data security posture management to discover and secure your ad sensitive data in Microsoft 365 and non-Microsoft 365 data, including connected partner solutions and sensitive data access in AI. Now, just at the bottom in here, you can see a whole lot of things. You can see the key posture metrics information. You can see things around data discovery, data protection, data investigation. If I go down, you can see things around top objective to protect sensitive data. And then you can also see data snapshots. So things around stale data, like I said to you, fresh data and stuff like that. Now, previously, you would be in the home session, and then you probably have some dashboard around the top sensitive platform, top sensitive information with data, blah, 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 blah. But this does not really give you an overview of what it is in terms of risk that you are currently experiencing in your organization. Now, and this is why I said that if I'm to implement this for someone, I'll tell you for a fact. Let's look at DSPM. Let's look at the information that you have in the data security objectives. Let's understand what the discoveries are, the actions to be taken. And you would see how quickly some of these things kind of interlink. Okay. So a good example, prevent oversharing of sensitive data. If I click into this video reduction action, and then I scroll down, you can see it says that unlabeled sensitive data are at risk of being overshared beyond the intended audience. The remediation plan. Complete the following action to reduce oversharing and improve data security organization. So the first thing is to protect your data from potential oversharing. What's it asking me to do? I click into this, and let's see what it says. It would take you to a data security risk assessment. You can see, you have to set up a few things in here. But before that, now, if you look at all of this, so he's talking about this is oversharing risk and stuff. But this one of the things I think should come to mind. Now, there's another thing that is saying to you. It says create a default sensitivity labels to help protect your organization sensitive data and apply the label across all sensitive information. Now, if you click into this view details, for example, you will see more information about what you need to do. So you create a default sensitivity label, and of course, creating default sensitivity label helps protect your organization by applying consistent labeling and protection settings across all sensitive information. And you can set default sensitivity label in information protection. And of course, it gives you steps on how to go about it. Okay. With this, so if you follow through all of this strategy, you would automatically realize that you'll be jumping into things like your DLP, your labeling, your this, your that, all those nice stuff. But this kind of helps you have a strategy so that the higher ups or the the leadership team understand how things tie together. And as such, they're able to make appropriate informed decision and even financial investments. Any question, guys? I know I've said a lot. No technical conversation, to be fair. I want us to understand the strategy. Any question, guys? I want you guys to ask some questions though. Unless any question, guys? Everybody's quiet. Okay. Now we look at a few other things. There is, so we've spoken about the objectives. We're looking at the AI observability. I mean, if you want to centralize, if you want to get a centralized view of agent activity across a business, so basically every organization is now investing in having agents, copilot this, copilot that, agentic AI this, agentic AI that. You don't really know what those AI agents are doing, and as such, you want to have an overview of what they're doing. So what are people asking the agent? Is it ethical? Is it non-ethical? Is it acceptable as part of the AUP? Is it not? With that, you can start thinking of what kind of policy you want to put in place. For example, do you want to stop users from being able to put some prompt into the agent to say, please can you share with me the CEO salary? Or do you want to say, when the agents, before the agent goes out to search the SharePoint site, do you want it to be able to filter a particular site and not filter another site? Do you want to ensure that the agent is not able to probably read encrypted documents? A lot of things like that. So you want to look at this. Now, for the discovery parts, you have the apps and agents. So basically, this is where you realize different set of agents, for example, that users are consuming and how they kind of interact with those agents or those apps. And as such, you can understand what policies tied to this, what policies tied to that, and then you can understand what the amount of agents that you've got in your organization so that you can then plan appropriately for it. Now, if you go back to what was discussed initially, if you're operating in silos for DSPM, for example, you are looking to build your I mean, you might eventually get to the end of the road, but you realize that you spend so much time building different set of policy that you might not need without understanding the amount of data that sits within your organization. So another thing, Activity Explorer is another very important part because this is where you can now understand how people kind of interact with sensitive data within your organization, you know. So you're looking at things like how what they do with the data, you know, the interaction with the data, what are the activity, what are the risk patterns, what are they really doing with the data, you know, how people share files in the personal emails, stuff like that. So that if you are building a single DLP policy that you're focusing more on PI data, maybe your risk is not PI as such, maybe your risk is the um commercially sensitive information that belongs to the business, you know. And of course, that allows you then carry out informed decision to say, no, well, let's not just plan for PII, but let's plan for commercially sensitive information. So let's work with the data owners, the data stewards, to understand what really sits within their SharePoint side, their file storages, and then help kind of put the right set of classification in place to support that conversation. So one thing I say to people is that data security is not an IT problem, technically, it's a business problem. And it's not just the business problem, it's the problem of the data owners. They have the responsibility to work with IT to ensure that the right security measures are in place to support the business, because you might have a user that is leaving the business. You might have a threat actor that has compromised an identity. You might have a third party partner that has been compromised. You might even have an accidental sharing. So all of these things has to be catered for. So Active Explorer does that for you. However, assets asset explorer, basically you want to see files and data sets that contain such information. So think about all of these things as things you find in your content explorer and all those nice stuff. So at the end of the day, you would realize that, I mean, I've got a couple of assets in here and stuff. I've doing a few tests, but you quickly realize how much information that sits in here that are unlabeled. That so back in the days, before DSPM came into play, you don't really know unless you deploy automatic labeling to a SharePoint site. You can't scan set of information that kind of makes sense to you. But imagine you've had the SharePoint site for over 15 years and you don't even know the amount of data that sits in there. Are you sure that the automatic classification engine is doing what it needs to do? Because you might classify things based on things that you've seen. What about the one that you've not seen? So you want to leverage on this asset owner to kind of help understand what sits in words and where does it sit, and with that, it can paint a proper picture for the C levels to say, by the way, we've got XYZ amount of sensitive information sitting in this place. So in my experience, I've worked with products like Vernix, I've worked with product like what a product I work with DSPM. I can't remember the name, but I've worked with about 3 products with DSPM. So I kind of understand the way the products kind of come in to supporting different based on different strategy. And for me, DSPM has been something that I've probably seen a lot, even before Microsoft started talking about it. Anyways, not to even, I mean, so that being said, and then other things you can then see around it is the data risk assessment side of things. You can see things around the hardware sharing, what's being shared, who's it shared to, the number of anonymous links that's been shared. And with that, you can then start thinking of how to then cut down the hardware sharing, or kind of monitor what is being shared within the sites, who's got access to the site, do you need to have access to the site? Because at the end of the day, you would reduce what we call your blast radius by cutting down so many unnecessary accesses. And as such, by the time you start implementing your labeling, your policy or daily policies or insider risk management, you've already established that level of you have that overview of what it is in your organization. So as such, you're not just chasing the cat or the rat. You already know exactly where the rat is, and you can then set the trap properly. So for me, from an experience perspective, I would say, I mean, there are multiple strategy for, I mean, for different use cases, but I think a lot of businesses will benefit so much from DSPM because it ties down into everything and anything that you're doing, because it's focusing more on the posture of the data rather than having to focus more on the tools that allows you to build the protection solutions. And lastly, you can set up task if you want. Basically, these are basically list of things that I should be turning on as recommended, and as such, this would then kind of inform all of the it's going to inform all of my understanding of all my sensitive data, and then kind of help me then create that level of insight that I need to then allow me to go into my DLP policies to build different things, or maybe my Defender for Cloud policies, or maybe my information protection policy, or maybe my RM policy, or maybe even my retention labor policies, or even things like information barrier. Because you realize that in some business, you might realize that, oh, if you are in a multinational environment, that some department shouldn't be speaking to another department, but because of the fact that you have so much wide link going up and down, you've shared some critical business proposal, also key infrastructure. Imagine you work with the Ministry of Defense, where you have been a gigantic um weapon arsenal. We have been a gigantic arsenal of weapons, and it's on a need to know base, or for your eyes only kind of thing. But because of the fact that somebody that set up the SharePoint site maybe like 10 years ago left the business and shared it with somebody that is in another department that doesn't need to see what you're doing. And all of a sudden, and you know how things works, they get a prompt and say, oh, by the way, there's a new document uploaded to this site, so you can access to it. And the person already have the access and access. They go in there and they could see the new weapon that's been built. And as such, maybe that might cause problems for the business. Maybe that might cause that might maybe that might be maybe that might be maybe that might be detrimental to the business. Maybe that might even be an information that goes out to the wrong hands. So these are the things that DSPM would offer you. Yeah, we've got a question in the chat. So who's asking? Also, one has got that on as well. So Emmanuel is asking something.
Yeah, there are two questions we have in the chat. One, the
let me-
first question from Manuel says, is there a need for DSP for AI if the right security, talking about AI security, has been put in place at the process of deploying the AI agent?
Okay, so you need to bear in mind that when it comes to AI, there are two aspects to it. One is the agent itself, and one is the users putting the prompt into the agent itself. Okay, so if the security I'm talking about is that you've actually done some data sensitization or some prompt sensitization to say this agent is not able to communicate to XYZ to get information or stuff like that, or you've put things like your AI firewall or whatever, there's still an aspect of somebody prompting the AI to do stuff. I'll give you a good scenario. I was following this guy from IBM. He was speaking about AI security and stuff like that. And he said so, and he said in his explanation, he said, you've actually done some sensitization of what you can prompt the AI. However, computers would only understand their own language. So you said to the computer that anytime you see anything that looks like this, don't provide information to the end user. However, if the computer is given the language you understand, maybe it's a base64 encoded content, but it's written, so if somebody is prompted the AI to say, please, can you teach me how to make a bomb, for example? And it says, you know what, because I know people have I mean, the security team have kind of put security in place. I need to know how to create a bomb into like a base 64 encoded content so that the computer can read it in a different way and then give you the answer, you know? So of course, definitely you need some sanity within how the agent is being used from the end user, or even the way the agent communicates. So the agent to agent communication, yeah, the agent put the security in place, but user to agent communication is another important part, because at the end of the day, there'll be a time whereby we will have so much smart, I think it's called reasoning here, whatever it's called, that they have the mind of their own. And then if it gets to the wrong hands of the wrong person, maybe whether insider or whatever, the agent could be tricked to do what it's not supposed to do. So it's important to have DSPM for AI, because at the end of the day, the agent is being used to prompt to ask for data, to ask for information. And if you don't sensitize the agent, that's where things like prompt poisoning is coming in. Things like what's it called? I've forgotten what some of this attack is called again. But I would probably encourage you to probably go on check the OWASP top 10 for AI. I think it kind of documents some of these things that you should look out for. But yeah, you should implement DSPM for AI. What's the that question? So someone said, I noticed that when I use ChatGPT at work, for example, when I type in short phrases that include someone's name within the organization, I get the pop-up indicating, yeah. So that's what I was just speaking about, Messi. That prompt has been blocked because it has to be used in an ethical way, and as such there's been policies in place built by your security engineers to say, look, you can't put in this kind of information and expect the AI to give it back to you. So yeah, what's the that question, Emmanuel?
Yeah, it seems that the two questions that we had so far.
Okay, I don't know how much time we've got. We've still got stuff to go on the slides, but we can see the power of DSPM and how much it kind of helps uh kind of it kind of guides our data security journey, you know. It's so important that if one take our time to understand each component of this, I mean, at the end of the day, not everything is going to be really important to you, to be fair. But if you understand what it looks like, it's then easy for you to go into the selective set of products within Purview to then implement what you need, as opposed just chasing the mouse. Okay. Any question, brothers, sisters, friends? Any question, guys, on what I've just discussed? Any question? Okay. We just continue then. No, I'm not doing that. Let's go to slideshow, I believe, yeah. So just gonna move quickly. Move. Now, we've got about how many more slides? Got about 4 more slides to go. Now, very important. What are the risk scenarios that I've seen in my experience? I was working with an organization, and they had over 5,000 overshared links. So I'll give you the grand scenario. During the time of COVID, where everybody was working from home, people were really excited. People got Teams, got SharePoint, got this and got that. Yeah, modern work space, work from home, remote became a thing. Businesses felt like we could collaborate on different things, let's work together, stuff like that. That was the start of the problem. At the point of collaboration, people share access to different SharePoint sites. We invite the people to their team's environment. They're working on the same document. Started multiple projects, finished the project, and that was it. Guess what? All of the project information and accesses that have been granted were still present. Now, what kind of risk does that pose to the company? A good example, let's imagine that you have a project site where you keep all your sensitive projects and you've invited company X to join you on a project. 5 days ago, COVID time, the project was successful. You rolled out, bam, 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 no question asked. Because you did not provide credentials for this user, they are just guessing your tenant. You then have their guest access still present. Of course, not really a big deal. And then because of the security of your what's it called, of your third party partners, maybe lose a bit, and then one of the users that was on a project got compromised. Same thing the threat actor would do is go through all of your emails, understand what is in there, search and search and search. So they found access to Project X. So Project X is basically the massive project for the new, for example, maybe the new American, let's say the new American defense, whatever. And the threat actors, basically, let's use the example that we've got Iran. They found out that information is in there. So first and foremost, the advisories already understands what the project's about, the reason for the project, of course, who are involved, what are the plans, and stuff like that. And because of that information that they've been able to get through the third-party compromise, they then, gather more information to carry out active reconnaissance. And then, let's say, for example, the threat actors then launch an attack based on the information they've got. So let's say Iran, for example, was looking to, attack a different location, but because they've got access to the American whatever project, they then redirected that attack to that sensitive project site just because of one single shared link to somebody that doesn't need it anymore. Now, I want us to do an exercise quickly, and I would appreciate if people can participate. If you were the person, if you were the person handling this kind of situation, how would you go about it? Just a one line on the chart, based on what I've just described. Just a one line in the chat. I'm speaking based on public data exposure. If you're the one that you were involved in, I mean, you kind of noticed this security risk, how would you go about it? Just one line on the chat. You don't have to open your mic and speak. Somebody said you restrict access to data immediately. True. But yeah, true. Who else want to say something? Who else want to say something? It's just Daniel. Check the dark web to ensure that sensitive data has not been leaked or listed for sale. Okay. I'm getting some. I just want to understand the way you guys think about stuff. I mean, everyone is giving some right answers here. Messi said something. I just about maybe 5 people can just give us some explanation based on what I've said. That'd be very helpful, just to be sure that people actually follow it. Come on, guys. Yeah, I know you guys have been following. Come on. Come on, guys. You don't want to speak to me. Somebody said that restrict access to third party, and then even restrict the third party org to your okay. Emmanuel, that's good. Oh, we need one more person. Just one person. Just before I just crown that. Restrict access data seems simple. Yeah. Everyone has said is right, honestly. However, if you trace it back to the initial conversation, it happened through the over permissioned org wide link that's been given to people that I did business with 3 or 5 years ago. So one of the first things I would do is to identify that particular oversharing and then kill the access immediately. Now, it's a common practice that it's a practice that you've seen. So people should work on a project. They don't close it well. And as such, I have a lot of, and it is something that is happening everywhere. I'm to be honest with you, even for me, I probably would find some third party that I've worked with, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've shared the link with them, but yeah, I didn't bother to go and check again. But what I would then do is to find every org-wide sharing, every anonymous sharing link or anonymous shared link, for example, so part of my anonymous shared link, and then kill those anonymous shared link to start with. Second of all, find all the org-wide access links, kill those links click those sharing as quickly as possible. Lastly, investigate the third-party guest account that we have. You are better off removing them from your tenant and having them to request for access whenever they need again. And this goes back to our concept of zero trust, really. You know, you want to verify them explicitly. Don't just make assumption. Verify explicitly. Assume that there's a breach every time. So find those kind of links, find the guest users, find the exposure level, kill it. And then, of course, our use case here, DSPM, then allows you to then find those org sharing, all those sensitive accesses and those dormant data and stuff like that. You find them and kill those link. The other thing that we then look out for is if you think a project is finished, what do you think should happen to the data if it's not required? Just one person can answer this. If you think the project is finished, what do you think should happen to the data if it's not required? If you think the project is finished, yes, delete the data. You are better off having a retention policy in place so that even if something happens, it's how far the threat actor or wherever it is will go is a determinant of what data they can access. So if you don't have data, there's no point keeping it. It's fundamental in security. So first things first, you stop the overexposure, find out the links, break it, find out the guest guys, remove the access. If they need to be on the project, they'll ask again and give it back to them. And of course, data that you don't need, kill it, delete it. And lastly, insider risk. In fact, as a matter of fact, most of the recent experience I've had with data security breaches and stuff is happening from insider risk. You've seen people going to computers and they're taking business corporate data, sensitive commercial data, and the kind of problem it would cause for you as a business. You might even lose your customer because how would your customer, your partner trust you with that data when they know that their data is not safe for you? So basically, it's a breach of trust on your business. You can't even operate properly. Sometimes you might even lose customers because that person has taken your intellectual business property, your crown jewels, things that are secret to the business. So these are the major risk scenarios that you want to look out for. So two things that I wanted to take away from this. Org-wide sharing is something that overexposed link. I'll probably use that way. It's something that most people don't take note of, because at the end of the day, people, the way you share data is not like you just copy it and just share it. You share it through links, through emails, through this, through that, and as such, you have that massive blast radius. You've got an answer. Um,
Yeah, thank you, Oladele. I wanted to contribute to that. Now, one of the best practice for organization, if if you are collaborating with some third party, maybe partner contractors, right? And you need to share documents, it is advisable that every of your sites internally should be set to the most restrictive. Then create one particular site that you use to collaborate. So meaning that at the org level, every site should be restricted to internal users.
mhm.
Then you create a different SharePoint site for collaboration with external people. Then that will be the site that will have that sharing with anybody. So you'll be able to control it as an organization that no matter what, even though these people we've invited them into our tenants, right? They will not be able to access any other sites apart from this site that we use for collaboration. And like you said, the moment we are done with the project, we are done with the collaboration, we'll delete all the data. So we know that that data is actually for that project for external collaboration. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. To be fair with you, that's another use case, you know, and you realize that sometimes problems when it comes to business is people, process, and the technology. Purview gives you that technology, but you need that process to drive it. And what you just described is a simple process of how you should go about your project. Some business might come up to say, you know what if we don't want to operate that way? You know? So ideally, from even from what you said now, I'm not thinking of a proper solution because I do have a problem with something similar to this. Every department should have a a project site. And you have the document site that you recite all your documents in there. Restrict external to just the project site. So anything that sits in that project site, you know that you can go through audit in a single pane of glass and then remove it. And DSPM is going to give you that visibility because you know by a fact that by the time you define your process, access to your operational site is fully restricted. And then that brings me down to how do you implement DSPM? Now, there's no conversation in security where you're not talking about the risk, because risk is a driving factor for every change you make, every configuration you do, every security controls we put in place. Now, you want to think about the setup. We've gone through that. So that setup bit is just to go through the analytics, switch some recommendation on to give you like what it is that's present in that environment, and that would then bring you down to the visibility. Once those prerequisites are turned on, you can now see what is in there. You know, it think about DSPM as a a tool that tells you how to do it and tells you what to do. And then think about the other plugin Purview product as the tools that you would use to do the things you want to do, like you use to resolve the problems. So understand your security posture management, understand your security posture, sorry. And then by understanding your security posture, you can then put management in place for that. And as such, that automatically reduces your risk. And then that of course will then follow through the optimization of all your data. So things around how do you use your data, the labels you've got, the retention policies, who's accessing them, how is it being shared. You know, at the end of the day, you can't really be 100% secure, honestly. And you can go on and on in this conversation for as long as you want to. But one thing that is pretty clear is that if you understand where you're starting from and where you are going to, having to configure the right set of products would is just going to be a walk in the park. But if you don't know where you're coming from and where you're going to, you realize that you probably start from the back to the front and stop in the middle. And that is why DSPM as a strategy is important. Now, in Purview, there is, I just have to put a slide in there just for us to know, just for us to, understand how kind of Purview you would use some of the key components in it to solve our problems. So you need to know your data. Of course, your discovery path is going to do that for you. Then with that, you then think about the protection of your data. So things around applying the labels to the application, using Defender for cloud application, scanning on premises for sensitive data, and then using the data map to apply labels to schematize data sets in Azure if you're working on structured data, the Azure Lake, Azure SQLs and all of this nice stuff. And with the prevention of data loss, you're talking about your DLP policies. What are those things because at the end of the day, DLP is basically usually the last piece of work that you probably want to configure because it's a preventive approach. But if the measure has gone beyond DLP, so somebody has tried to send something that could not be scan, cannot be it doesn't have a particular detection component in it, for example, because with DLP you need what we call your content types. Maybe the structure of the file is just what it is, but you want to ensure that every file that leaves your business still has the level of protection in place. So the whole idea is that you want to understand the strategy of what you want to do first. You want to know your data, you want to then protect your data, you don't want to prevent data loss and stuff like that. So using DSPM as a tool would allow you then implement what we got here successfully because you have an idea of what it's in there, and you can then build robust strategy to tackle it from a strategic standpoint rather than just going into the portal to make configuration. No solution comes without its own challenges. Okay. I'll tell you for a fact. Apart from the volume of data, I think I forgot to add it here. Apart from the volume of data, one of the challenges that comes with this is the data owner. Some people like this old way of working. They don't want to change. The easy way to just get things out is what really matters to them. They have lots of sensitive information that sits with them. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. If there's no problem, there shouldn't be a solution. But security is not like that because it only takes a single breach to cost the business a lot. A good example, if you look at if you look at this company, I don't know if you know it, Capital, they got breach, security incidents from a single alert, a compromised user alert. The SOC did not do what they had to do, and then they were fined over £9 million from one single incident. So the challenges are going to be there. And how you kind of go around the challenge or the challenges is depending on how the leadership wants it to go. So that like that, and that's why I said that DSPM is a leadership problem, is a leadership headache. It's you have to paint the picture to them to say, look, this is the problem we've got here. This is the risk involved. This is how much you can potentially lose if something goes wrong. Let's deal with it. The other problem that you might experience is the volume of data. Some file server, some SharePoint site, some data have been existing for so long, and there is a large ton of data sitting in there that are still that are not necessary anymore, that should be have been deleted. But because of the fact that there's no proper process in place, you still keep the data and still rewind it, which automatically then becomes a problem because you don't have to then cater for managing those data with the policies. And of course, you then now start thinking about how to then delete those data. Apart from that, you want to also look at false positive because you want to be able to measure success and operationalize what makes sense. You don't want to overwhelm the people working in the security operation with so many alerts that are not necessary. So as such, by the time you're building your DOE policies, it has to make sense, ensuring that you have the right. So every business understand their data objective. They understand what is sensitive or what is not sensitive. They understand what can really be a problem to them and what doesn't really what that's not going to be a problem to them. So because the book says turn on this, turn on that, the book has been designed to just give you generic expression. You then as a business need to understand what strategy works for your business. And that is why I said that this is not an IT edict. It's an edict for everybody involved in in the utilization of data. So basically the C levels, the business owner, the data owner, the information security stands, the security, the infrastructure security stands, even to the end users as well. It's involved everyone. So basically they have to be carried along. Change management. There is a saying in security, if it's not broken, sorry, there's a saying in infrastructure, not security. If it's not broken, you don't fix it. Sometimes you have to fix it though, because it's not broken means that there hasn't been something to come and shake it. So as such, infrastructure might, sometimes the infrastructure team might be like, we can't implement it because of the amount of overwhelming thing that might happen to us. Or even the users might be like, you know what, every data we pick, we have to then justify why we want to use the data, we want to send it out, we have to make requests, stuff like that. So it makes change management a problem because people naturally are not naturally, if you have a way of working that's been working for you, somebody wakes up the next and say, you know what, we are changing this to a different system. If the system is even simple enough, but it is not something you are familiar with, you would probably kick against it. So you find some resistance in this place. Lastly is integration. You would face problem with integration, but I think these days things are now a lot easier with through API and all of this nice stuff. So it shouldn't really be a problem. But I mean, if you are not using connected product like if a entire Microsoft house and you've got third-party systems that you want to integrate with, then you might run into a problem. The key takeaways for us is data security project management improves visibility and control. Purview then provides the end-to-end coverage of your data and then enables proactive security reduction. And that comes to the end of the conversation. We have the channel for question, discussion, Q&A while we wait to just round up. We've got about 15 more minutes to round up. So yeah, the floor is ours to have a chat. What are the challenges you've got in your organization? How have you how have dealt with it? What I can learn from you. If you think there's a different way to go about it, just feel free to just unmute yourself. Maybe just raise up your hand and we just have a chat for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Oladele, for the session. Guys, if you have any question, the floor is actually open for questions. The floor is open for questions. If you have people with questions, practical approaches to DSPM for your organizations, the floor is open.
It looks like Have I lost a lot of people in this call? Have I lost the guys in the call? Feel free to say you've lost us, or feel free to say. At the end of the day, really, I think it's more of a conversation for me rather than even a lecture whatsoever. To be fair, because I'm still learning, and every other day there's only something new that comes up from this product, you know. So, guys, please feel free to unmute yourself. Let's have conversation. You know,
Yeah,
get
well,
to know.
we have a question from Theo. He's saying
Okay.
that DSPM, is it cost effective? And do organization have to train IT professionals on it again?
Um, the the answer to this is very, very first and foremost, every IT deployment would come at a cost. So if you look at it from a risk perspective, yes, it's going to save you more if you, of course, get attacked and something happens to your data, because you would the couple of £1,000s you're going to pay for buying the solution would save you millions of pounds that you probably paid to the ICU for not being compliant, or even to the ransomware guys that stole your data. So if you look at it from that perspective, yeah, it's effective. But if you're looking at it from coming out from the business to implement solution, yeah, it's just one of those costs that you have to budget for every year. But yeah. And the other question, um, to be fair, anyone who is already within the data security journey should be able to do brush up on it. Like I said, to me, it's not really a product. It's like is a strategy. So you rather want to understand all the solution that plugs into, like your DLP, your Defender for cloud apps, your sensitivity levels, your understanding of your agents, AI agents, your incident risk management policy and stuff like that. So yeah, all of those things will come in that very handy when you start deploying this, because it's a comprehensive bucket for everything. To access. Okay, so yeah,
I was putting an answer for him there. So for before an organization can use DSPM, they need either the Microsoft 365 E5, and if they don't want to go for E5, maybe they have E3 or Office 365 E5. They will need the add-on, which is a Microsoft Purview suite, or it used to be formerly known as Microsoft 365 E5 compliance license. So it's an add-on license that organization can purchase on their current license, and they'll be able to access DSPN. And for in terms of training, I mean, Microsoft try as much as possible to update their documentations. I'm very sure most of us most of us that learn most of this technology, we leverage on Microsoft documentations, because if you also happen to work with Microsoft partners, which I currently work with, so Microsoft has different free trainings for partner. Like if you go to skillinghub.com, sign in with your organization email as a Microsoft partner. If you're working in a partner organization, you have access to those training resources, and they are free. They are available, they are on-demand training, they are live training as well. So indirectly, you're not really paying particularly for the training, because Microsoft tried to make those training free. And on different Microsoft YouTube side as well, maybe Microsoft Learn also, they try as much as possible as they are releasing new products. There is a trainer like an SME, that will introduce the product and also, share the knowledge around the product. So I don't think for an IT person, so far you're an IT person, it's something that you can actually learn with the support of Microsoft resources that are free, that are available out there.
yeah, and that's, to be fair, that's just it. I wasn't more speaking on the licensing part, I was more speaking on from a strategic. But yeah, obviously, I think it's important that so what is say give the instance where there is a data breach at ICO, find the company. Is it the standard policy, or are there lay down procedures before final being awarded to the You know what? So I feel is basically interested in how much personal data that has been breached and what the level of. So, say for example, if you are holding on to people's PI data and there's a breach of those data and it contains over maybe hundreds of thousands of personal data. As part of your compliance requirement, you're supposed to ensure that this data are fully secure, but that's why they've given it to you. And how you process it is also your headache. And as such, for you to operate back in business, you must meet up with those compliance requirements. And yeah, that is why we have all of this ISO standard, whatever standards that you have to follow based on your business or organization or your country. Because what that means is that you have to first report yourself to the ISO to say have been breached, and then they carry out investigation in your secret infrastructure. And once they see that yes, the problem is from you for not doing this or that, they slap you a fine, you know. And yeah, so that's about it really. So any other question, guys? What's it? How does DSPM work in multi-cloud environment? Good question. Now, in the multi-cloud environment, Purview has extension to different multi-cloud environments. So, I mean, of course, the whole idea is that if there is a discovery ability to discover those multi-cloud environments, you can get information ingested into Purview. So, things like your Purview data maps and things like your third-party infrastructure scanner and stuff like that. So far Purview is able to deploy to those third-party cloud application. Third-party cloud environment. You can then scan for sensitive data and stuff like that within those areas. So and as such, if you can scan, then there's something for DSPM to see. So I'm not quite sure of how the integration will work, but it's something that it's a common use case.
Yeah, there is all pivot code on the data map. So the data map allows you to, if you have data in your Amazon S3 buckets, for example, now, so the connector will allows you. So there are different collectors that Microsoft has provided, such a way that you'll be able to connect if you're in AWS, if you're in GCP, if your data are even hosted on premises. Maybe you have SQL servers on prem. So that's actually how you go about it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Itoje. Um, any other question, guys? We've got how many more minutes? 7 more minutes. Any other question? I have a question actually. I have a question. So, my question is, at the moment, and I mean, there could be wrong, there could be wrong or right answer depending on how you say it. Though. I mean, do you think your expectations were met in this call today? Or is it enough? You could just be yes or no, yes, no, 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 yes. I mean, just to understand, do you think your expectations were met in this call today? Nobody wants to answer me. I'll answer myself first. My expectations here was met. Mine was met. I don't know if yours were met.
Mine was beyond expectations, yeah.
Glad to hear that. Yeah, so because at the end of the day, sometimes um sometimes businesses don't really understand to be fair, businesses understand their problems, but they don't understand how to go about providing solutions to these problems. And you see people having so much investment in the E5 license, and they can't even fully consume it, So I think after this call, what my take is that I'll probably go back to where I work and then start thinking, is this something, because is this something that we haven't really consumed? We've been paying ridiculous amount of money to Microsoft, and we need to optimize all of this. And so I'm just indulging you guys to, ensure that you look into your current investment and then utilize this product. Of course, if you need some training, if you need to read about things, to just understand that some of these products can do so much up for you. And like I said, you only have one chance of be getting a fine. So security risk doesn't just happen from like in the movie, and it's just one thing, one user, one endpoint, one server, one network access, one this, one that, and yeah, that's it. Wasio, you got a question or you got answer?
Hi, Oladele.
Hi.
Thank you for today's class. Please, a quick one. I would like you to put more light when you say DSPM is a strategy. So I think I'm a little bit confused in that aspect. That's where I'm just confused. When you say it's a strategy, I want you to put more light on that.
Okay. I'll try to. It's just the next 4 minutes. So the reason I say the strategy is because it's if you look at the name, data security posture management, there's no way you can protect your data without understanding the posture. And what is posture? Posture is the way you quantify how far or how good or how bad things are. Okay? What is the management part? The management part is that how you manage the situation, the posture. So the reason why I say this is strategies because you would manage how far, how good out things with a strategy, with an idea, with thoughts, and those thoughts are going to be coming from what Purview is giving to you. And then as such, those thoughts are the strategy that you then use to then go into the individual product within Purview to then build up what has been recommended. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Let me add to that. Oladele. So for you as an engineer, let me use that word or as an architect in an organization, security engineer or security architect. One of the things that the executive teams want to understand is this thing that we are spending money on. What are the business, a kind of a case study? What are the business benefits for us? So that's where DSPM becoming a strategy, right? That you are able to tell the executive team, I'm talking about the C-level guys, that you're presenting it to that, okay, if you implement the solution, it's going to protect us from this fine, from this data breach, such a way that without this solution being in place and our data is exposed, maybe on the dark web or something, we are hacked. Now it's going to cost us more. But implementing this particular solution, right, is going to help us to prevent data loss and insider risks and a lot of things that the solution does as a whole. So being a strategy means that you are looking at the overall security of your data estate as a security architect. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair with you, you just nail it on there. That overall security, that overall data estate is a so it's just a way to present back to the business. Look, this is how much rubbish you guys have going here, or this is how much good you guys have going here, or this is how much porous you are, or this and that is where this is where you then give excitement to information security guys, GRC guys to go and bang on the door of the CEO that we have a problem, you know. So that visibility is key. And that's why I said from the beginning, it's not a conversation for just engineers. It's not a conversation for just architects. It's a general business problem and it's a worry for the business owners and the data owner. You know, it's something that you have to start. If you're not sinking into them now, they need to know that data is a big risk. And a good example is we just block your CEO's email, and you should not be able to send emails outside of the business unless it's going to come at your door and start say, what's going on to my email? So it shows how important, or maybe he's not able to get access to files that he needs to send to his own to the customers that he's working with or something. So, and that's it really. Guys, we are just back on time. It's been an amazing ride speaking to you guys. Hopefully, we'll be seeing to speak about other things. But yeah, thanks for having me and have a great rest of the Saturday.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. So in the chat, I put in the link to the YouTube channel where the session will be hosted, the recording will be posted, and the previous sessions that we had also are also hosted there. Please do well to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we have an amazing session coming in April also. We'll be looking at information protections, still on the Microsoft Purview. So I'd like to see everyone there. Last Saturday in the month of April, same time, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. West African time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and enjoy your weekend.
All right, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Please, I don't have access to the chat, please. I can't have access to the link.
Okay, where did you join the community from?
From WhatsApp, from the WhatsApp group.
There are a lot of WhatsApp groups I posted it. Which of them?
Okay, let me see.